Calypso is a Duke surgical machine learning project, and the goal is to predict a patient's risks given a surgery. So using an elastic net, we're able to predict surgical site infection, cardiac, and renal risk, to name a few. And in this first graph, it represents a patient's relative probability. The closer a point is to the right, and the bigger the sphere, the more risky that factor is. So 0 represents a average patient. So the average patient will be here. 1 would represent 2 times the average risk. 2 would represent 3 times the average risk, and so forth. And so in this case, cardiac, this patient is 3 times more likely to incur some cardiac risk versus around 2 times less likely to incur some surgical site infection. So these spheres, the larger the sphere, the greater the absolute risk. Something like a UTI infection here is only around 6%, but the morbidity risk is around 51%, which is why these spheres have such a large discrepancy. So you should notice that larger spheres kind of just draws the eye. Down here, this is a bar chart displaying similar information. The blue line represents the average, so the average patient has this amount of risk, and the total bar length is this current patient's risk. So we can learn more by clicking on one of these predictors. So this will give a histogram of where the patient falls in the population. So this patient is in the 95th percentile for cardiac risk. So perhaps this surgery is not such a great idea. And we can see all the patients that fare better and all the patients that will fare worse. And ideally, that some of the next step that we want is to provide some intervention. And with this intervention, we can see that if we adjust some factors, what will happen to the risk. And so we can see that in this fantasy world where we adjust age, the risks have decreased. If we say that the patient was not a smoker, the risks also decrease. Perhaps their BMI was a little lower, and perhaps they were not classified so high. And we can see that some of these risks straight up disappear. So yeah, the next steps is really to integrate this application into Epic and to use it in production in Duke's health system. Thanks for watching.